Hi everybody. This is actually nice for a change because I don't have to worry about what I'm doing with my legs as I shift my weight back and forth. Okay, so I'm always time conscious with these things. I've been told I have 20 minutes. I mean, I feel like because it's my chapbook, I can go over by a couple minutes maybe. But what I wanted to do was, interweave poems from the actual chapbook with stuff that I've been working on more recently. And there seems to be a kind of a shift in style even within what I did last year and this year, so hopefully it's interesting. The other nice thing about this is that I can give you at least like one or two sentences about where things come from, which in a group setting, doing a group reading, I usually don't have that affordance in terms of time. So some extra context is sometimes helpful, sometimes not. So the first poem I'm going to read is from the chapbook. The funny thing about it is that I actually tried to get into Asimov's magazine with this poem because they accept science fiction poetry. And I was like, what is science fiction poetry? So, and I'm a big science fiction fan, so I guess this is my attempt. This is called Playthings. In 100 years, our bodies will be costumes, changeable, reversible. Unzipping ourselves will surface like new islands. Against the waves, desire's crest. Each ascendant us becoming habitat for exotic animals and religions of the last. Each cell will resemble a mirror ball, falling into possibility, meteors in ether. My skin could be anything, a lattice for fox grapes and grouse that roost within your chest. Your arms, a stream where enemies share a drink. In 1,000 years, our bodies will be playthings, dissolvable, dispensable. From foyers of space and time, we'll madly puppeteer, smash our avatars together, squish. Intertwine in singularity, in orgiastic theater, and the bodiness of bodies will amuse us. My skin will be, by then, pure figment, a mind rapping softly on the door of physicality. Your arms will form a universe unto themselves, where suns are birthed and eaten. Across the back of multitude will carve our silhouette. This next one is much more recent. It's called Orienting Reflex. It is a strange mixture of, I listen to way too much CBC, and I heard a story about how elephants create sort of psychogeographic maps of fear in terms of territory, and then it's oddly combined with renovations that we've been doing on our cottage. Okay, so 3 parts, Orienting Reflex. 1. Quicksand hit Joan like a hammer. The dull, blunt end of dementia enters square between the eyes. Nails the scribbles to the wall and makes no apologies for taking every prisoner, erasing their names and birthdays, college majors, favorite colors. It compresses decades of safe into diamonds of fear. Princess-cut pills come matte in a blister pack. 2. Elephants develop a landscape of fear, memories so tightly packed they fight for air, swallowing details of the other, becoming cannibal, flattening the fauna of whatever paves utopia. Worlds without giants end in eating themselves. 3. The yard and boathouse shouldered the impact. Its lilac ground zero, machete mums, peridot vests mine firestorm mind, neon flashes of contractor jackets, bobcats inverting neglected earth. Open areas, long lines of sight, plentiful paths down which to flee, overgrown in everglades, chopped down trees, trimmed long grass. Okay, I have to preface this next one to say that it is a work in progress. In doing my PhD, I'm talking a lot about the computer world, the networks that surround us, and all the data all the time. So this is probably full of kind of specific terminology, but not really, because they have some weird terminology for data. So just bear with me. Okay, this is called the unicorn prismatic. Big data, thick data, 50% more fat data, so you have to sieve it like a soup data. Data mastication of the cannibalist corporate body, push the logic of the tractable, catch the data that bends, purge the data that breaks, data so rigid it splinters into glaring shards of error. Really bad data, shit data, streaming data effluence, data leaks and data breaching like the back of animal instinct regrowing its horror head. Galloping in from a distance, a soft prism rides a unicorn, its blazing mane of alterity framing quantum marvels. The reconfiguring borders of its exponential faces cut like novel lines of insight, spilling the breast of calculus, othering binary constructs into hyphens and inversions, outliers becoming outposts for local asset management, networks of radical kinship. The whole of existence alight with fire that doesn't burn but orchestrates combustion, immanent domains exploding to birth flexible ontologies and multidimensional beings, the world a virtual chameleon. Until I catch my own reflection, returning to the vice of reified living, recorded and eliminated in the shark eye of the screen. Okay, this next one is from the chapbook. It's literally about how I don't like wearing pants. It's metaphorically about a lot of other things. And this was actually almost the title of the chapbook because I thought that it kind of described me in a way which I guess reveals something as well. So this is called Porcupine Sleeves. To get dressed can be difficult enough. Distressed silhouettes in narrowing margins. Archipelagos of my arid skin sigh in multiple material sensitivities. Sliding in charmeuse, slick as quicksand, denim like swimming with reptiles. There are reasons that reason is shapeless. Armor is ever more arduous, bearing the weight of an elephant's smile, or raising a glass in porcupine sleeves, shoulders so stiff that they're Byzantine, shrugging off the dust of disproportion, sending out SOS in emotional smoke. Isolation is the garden that God forgot. Okay, this next one's a new one. Do people know what the Marianas Trench is? Okay, good, because that's the title of the poem, so that makes a difference. Maybe I'll read it and then I'll tell you what actually inspired it. Okay, here goes. Marianas Trench. Nothing goes untouched in the plague. Foot or fingerprints can be marked and measured, but the science of choke is insidious. You'll never notice the ground giving way until gravity makes you move. Every day a vortex, thousands of eyes open and close, semi-blind swallowing the remnants of our pre- and post-industrial revolutions, housing pockets of rot and LCD and neglect that run deeper than our senses can probe. They spread spiny like bramble in the cracks of integrity, impossibly yawning. so deep into the gulches of the planet that they pierce the fifth dimension and come out the other end. So deep that the marine geophysicists in the charred black bottom of the ocean are actually the wayward caravan conquering Mount Everest. But instead of planting their flag at the apex, they are furiously photographing a cheap plastic bag from Walgreens, undulant white and nonchalant in brute halo of submarine lamplights. It declares, "This earth belongs to your garbage." Okay, so this is another news story I heard about where they had actually gone down in the submarine to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, and they were photographing in the ravine. I mean, this is the deepest place in the Earth's oceans, and flapping there in the gentle undulation of the water was a Walgreens plastic bag. So we have our garbage, not maybe we, but our garbage has touched the deepest place in the Earth. So I just kind of had to do, I don't know if it's a in memoriam poem or not. Okay, this next one is also new. The next couple are new. This one is another one that is very idiosyncratic, so, and it's meant to be kind of funny, so I hope that that's the way that it comes across. This is called Labels. Most of this is in quotes, so if I might lean a little bit to try and indicate. "Don't you think you should get rid of those socks?" "I do not," he chides. "Should is a swear word. What's wrong with them anyway?" I turn back toward the burners, sear the judgment from my face. "They're old. That's ageist. And ashy. That's racist. They make you look kind of cheap. There's no ism for that, but he's not too concerned. Ghosts of the middle class are Hollywood's problem." "Listen," I snap, like a fortune breaking open. "If I can't say these things as your friend, or your partner, or your lover, or whatever banner marks me significantly other, then how will I know when I'm not?" We live really close to Dufferin Mall, like right behind Dufferin Grove, and so I don't want this to sound crass, but I see lots of interesting characters, and some of them I get to know pretty well because I see them a lot, and we've lived in that same neighborhood for almost 8 years now. And so this is what happens when you write, right? You start to absorb all of the characters around you. This is called Squirrel Deva. The Squirrel Deva arcs quietly on the corner of Dufferin and Sylvan, savoring each second before the light goes green, rolling it round in her mouth like an after-dinner mint, and then rolling it through her rubber body, elastic lunge, before drudging the icy crossing and entering the beige shopping complex, becoming Karen of Joe's No Frills. But until then, she is casting nets, projecting black constellations of want onto the boot-trodden grass of the park slope patiently, slickly, her hand an open flower, giving away all its essence in the hope that hope continues. And as the seeds scatter on barren ground, life materializes rapidly, buzzing with scarcity, force-feeding its beady eyes, breathing out through its bushy tail. The Squirrel Deva is proud, Pied Pipering her minions, their gratitude a cloud and their excitement a virus, though her face sinks down in preparation, dissolving its complexity that would only scare the humans, flitting about their days, also buzzing with scarcity, never comprehending that nature is viscous, that every form of life only arrives through another, that her name tag says Karen, but her song is divine. Okay, the next is a little suite that's from the chapbook that isn't really meant to go together, but it kind of goes together. It all has to do with me kind of taking on different personas, which is a theme that runs throughout. This is called Performing the Moon. And credit to Lee for setting it typographically in the chapbook, because when you see it, it requires some careful attention. Okay. Pretending to be yourself is performing the moon. All possible wavelengths will propagate at differing speeds and intensities inside the prism. Arterial asphyxiation means slipping behind one's own shadow, though you must first refract the obvious. Sidereal blues and greens tumbling out in brute totality. A lifetime spent learning how to limbo in lunar eclipse, diagrammatic dances, the external-internal contacts of umbral undulations. Geocentric libration is two-faced, optical and physical. It's not only the mask, but that which needs masking that positions want, coordinates depth. This next one is called the Wikipedia Remix of William F. Graham. And this was literally a Wikipedia remix. And the poem that I just read wasn't a remix, but basically I took a Wikipedia article and tried to jam it into a poem that fit on a page. And there's something about that I think kind of speaks to our current time, our moment, the way that we live, trying to jam a lot of information into small little bits. And this is about the death of Billy Graham, which I have no actual real sentiment about other than that I think he led a really interesting life. And so looking at the Wikipedia entry about him, I wanted to kind of create an alternate sort of biography. Someday you will hear that I have died. Don't you believe a word of it. I'll be more alive than I am now. I will have only changed my address. I will have gone home again to red brick to read books from an earlier age, especially Tarzan. Roars in the poplars, scooping horse and drivers, too worldly. I paddled my pale canoe through the wilderness, preaching light to the birds and alligators, the cypress stumps. Soon, songs in the night stood erect as circus tents in parking lots, 5,000 voices to sing just as I am, or stammer proudly into hell. Chattanooga's revival, the cross coming down to ground level, 1967, Madison Square Garden, crusades of a different color. Converted at 16, the 18th green, Jesus had no political party. The great legitimator was foremost a Southerner. Citation needed. He built his own pavilion among the peach trees, his own sovereignty, How to Be Born Again made publishing history, My Hope America is to be re-released on DVD, Does Faith Make Me an Architect as others would deem me, a bridge builder, beaming over secular fields? Most of that was actual quotations too, which is kind of incredible. Okay, last one in the suite. How am I doing? Do we know?
We're at like 19 minutes.
Okay. I only have three in my hand.
I'm not a stickler.
Okay. This is actually, the reason it fits is it's a remix of an old poem that's from 2003. This is called Abigail. I am diary lock, she is paring knife, we are hallway. Bread aroma, burning lactose, she bubbles, I sizzle. Festering secrets, monologues, spilt milk over, damp towels. Red algae, sullen spores, envy blooms everywhere. Raw linoleum, open arteries, egg timer timing, intellectual abortions. I am flatline, she is arrhythmia. A death march sounds for the tone-deaf martyr. Confusion, confusion, confusion. Okay, this one's very appropriate because it is about art school in a way. And babies, and making creative work, and maybe appreciating the hollow. This is called negative space. Again, credit to Lee who had to deal with my extreme formatting on this one. It's the very first lesson in compositional theory, how not to stick something in there. The nexus of intention. Respect the horror of the undecided, dressed in its whitest, finest. All around me, drones of reproduction. They love their positive space and pay no attention to the really important things, like nothingness. Every empty nook is a cradle in waiting. Baby will fill the vacuum. But it's a dangerous climb for anything innocent, arriving naked and needing to slog a pockmarked planet of hazmat and fascists. The last thing that you learn in art school is how to effectively sell yourself. My friends all think I'd make a great father who could make a greater father, a man who is not a patriarch, a peacock expanding in grayscale. But there are no living alchemists. Artwork, like agriculture, is sowing seeds of prospect. Pauses, so pregnant, they deliver themselves from sin. Okay, final poem. This one I'll just preface, again, a lot of CBC. So this is written in 2 parts. But my partner, Chase, who's here tonight, and I were lucky enough to buy a home in the Kawarthas last year, which is a strange return to a rural style of living for me, which I haven't had for a long time, but I did grow up in a very small town of like 2,000 people. And we're right also on this amazing, I say amazing because it's a busy river, which is not what most people would want, right? You want a calm, peaceful, where people aren't around all the time. But you see a lot, and remarkably, there's still a lot of wildlife. And this is all to say that in the middle of the winter, when nobody's around, is when all of the cool wildlife come along. And particularly we get tundra swans in the middle of the winter. So this poem is about them, as well as many other things, of course. It's called Swans. 1. 2 French curves cut the river's cloth, making lace. Fading tapestries in their wake glimmer and expire as they stroke sun-dried docks, dilapidate maples. Branches laden with new life sway in raptured masses, clamoring to extol Kawartha's crowning jewels, their diamond white down adorning the verdant shore. I'm painting a rowboat in Tuckahoe with broad bands of yellow, pausing to admire this distance between the homely tones of artifice and the devil-may-care of swans. I am struck by the thought I have never seen a comet, never been witness to an Icarus or the fission redemption of Phaedon. But this moment might do. These are celestial bodies. Like ripened buds of cotton in autumn, they are stark, ever effervescent and naked. I take on the trance of a sponge preceding absorption, dreaming, my land-loving form forgotten. In tandem, they dive, as lovers do, headlong in cares akimbo, whispering vows where only riprap will hear. They scream sweet nothings in icy blue and sing pink for the broken-hearted. 2. I heard the eulogy for Thomas while listening to As It Happens. Snow-blind, snow-white, polyamorous and gay, he fell hopelessly for Henry, his pomegranate mouth and elegant neck. Against the tide for 30 years, through seasons of flood and feast, through triangular fantastic dances, lagoons of unseen sadness, they made an unwavering love, the king size of yours forever. This avian irreverence, a black swan, wild goose, rarer birds now honored as online memes, oblivious to fringe, biologies of borders. Is it queer to concede I covet them? How I wish that those birds were us. Thank you very much.